Welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about making 3D product mockups using Adobe Illustrator. So we're going to make both a box and a jar product mockup, and I'm going to show you quickly and easily how you can transform your artwork into something 3D to show a client. So the first project we're going to work on, we're going to continue our soapbox. So in one of my previous projects, we developed a soapbox, and this was the flat artwork we used. So I'm going to go ahead and I took these items here that I used and I brought them over to this file. So I have each one of the faces for my soapbox. So before we put these on, let's just talk about making 3D objects. So I know the size of my soapbox. If we go here and we look at the final size, it was 2.5 by 3.5 with a height of 1 1/4. So let's go ahead and let's make our new box. So we're going to make that front face. So we're going to make the width 3.5, the height 2.5. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on the black stroke just to show you guys what happens, so common problems. So we have our shape here. Now we need to make this shape 3D. So to do that, we're going to go to the Effects, 3D, and we're going to say Extrude and Bevel, and we're going to go up 1 1/4 inches. So 1.25, you might need to put the inches there. And we're going to do what's called an extrusion. So an extrusion just stretches it out in a 3D shape. Let's go ahead and accept that. So first things first, this is our 3D soapbox. Notice how we have those black edges. That is because we have our stroke on. If we turn our stroke off, we get a nice, plain, well-lit shape. So go ahead and click on the shape, and let's talk about just the object panel here. So first things first, the 3D type, this is where we define what kind of item it is. We can give it a cap, and we want to make sure we have a cap on because it's solid. If you wanted a hollow box, you would turn that off. You could put a bevel on the edges. In this case, we're not going to use the bevel. And we have the rotation panel down here. And the rotation panel, this controls our view. So right now we're set to off-axis front. We can also move the box in the X, Y, and Z. So if we want to move around the X, there we're rotating. We can move around the Y. And we can also move around the Z. So you could put this box in a lot of different positions. You can also control perspective if you want to give it that kind of close-up 3D look if you want to get a little funkier. We can also do custom rotation, so we can show it just from the front. We can also show it off-axis front, and we can turn the perspective down. It kind of depends what you guys want to do. And we can give it a little perspective if you want. We can also do the isometric left. I kind of like this view, at least for what we're doing right now, so I'm going to just keep it on isometric left with a little bit of perspective. We also have some quick actions, but we're not going to use those right now. Let's jump to the next panel, which is materials. Materials is where we can define, let's put on materials there, is where you can define what the base material of the object is. In this case, I like default. You could also do a cardboard. There's a cardboard down here, so we could choose cardboard paper. And when we do that, it's going to load a texture file. And that texture file has kind of a cardboard look to it. We could control the color. We could tell it to be a white cardboard. And it would work. It has a texture. It's okay. For this project, I kind of like just the smooth look. So I'm going to go back and set it to default. But I want you to understand that there are some options here for what kind of material. Now, we can also do our graphics. So if you notice here, it only has a few graphics, so I need to get these graphics into our graphics panel. To do that, the easiest way is to go to your symbols panel and load up your symbols panel. So let's talk about our symbols panel. First, we're going to get rid of our default symbols. Let's go ahead and delete them. And we're going to add in these as our symbol. So we can go ahead and select our front face. We add new. And It can be a static or dynamic in this case. And we're just going to say graphic. And we're going to call it soap front. We're going to go ahead and add it in. I'm going to go ahead and add one of my sides because we'll definitely see that. Again, I'm going to tell it just to be graphic. And let's go ahead and add another side. We'll call it vertical. Make it a graphic and click OK. So now you noticed I've loaded in my graphics. So let's click on our 3D shape again and let's have some fun. So let's go ahead and let's add the front of my box here. So when I click the picture, notice it will put that picture on my box. Now, the fun part, it treats it like a sticker. So in Adobe Illustrator, I can grab this and I can move it around. This is why it's important to work at the same size and resolution because you want to get it to fit the best you can. So after I move it around, that placement looks correct. You'll notice down here in properties, that is my soap front. If I needed to scale it up, I can grab the handles and scale it. Let me go back. You can also rotate it and do things like that. Let's go ahead and let's add our side. I guess I would have called this top going back, but let's go ahead and let's put it up here. You want to try to get it in the closest position you can. You can always zoom in to get a little bit closer. Let's go ahead and add that other side over here. Now this is one where I would need to rotate it. So let's go ahead and spin it around. The rotation's going to be pretty close to 90 on that one. Not quite perfect yet. Have to rotate it a little bit more. There we go. That's pretty close. Maybe not 100%, but pretty darn close there. So there you go. Quick, easy. We have created a 3D model of our product. So that is how you make a soapbox, quick and easy. Now, some other things we can play with here. We can play with our lighting. So right now, I think the lighting looks pretty good. Okay. So that would be our standard lighting. You could do a diffuse lighting, which you'll notice we start to get some stronger shadows. You could do a top left, which kind of lights it from the back. You could also do a top right, which lights it from the other side. In this case, I think standard looks the best. You could turn up some ambient light if you don't like it, but I'm going to leave it like it is right now. So if I was ready, this 3D view was perfect. The last step you want to do is you want to render your object. So we can render this using ray tracing. So let's go ahead and let's look at our settings here. We can turn on ray tracing. We'd want to tell our quality to be high when you're ready, and we can hit render. And what it's going to do, just like any 3D object, it's going to read the object, take a look at the lighting and apply everything, and it is going to render a final lit 3D box to make it look good. Now, some warnings about the render. You want to make that your last step, because if I go now and try to make a change, let's say I want my light to be a little bit stronger, it's going to have to re-render every time I do that. So the rendering is kind of that last step. When you are done, you're ready, and your model is good. Actually, that looks pretty good. So we can zoom in, and you guys can see it keeps the quality. It looks good. That's the beauty of Vector. Everything stays looking good. So that is a final box there. Now, some other things about boxes. If you don't like this up and down view, start with your shape a different size. So we could go 3.5 by 1.25 for our shape, and we could then extrude it, but we would extrude it at 3.5 inches. So if you wanted a different view of your box, you just start with your different shape and you extrude it a different way. So if I wanted this box laying down, that would be the easiest way to build it. And then I could put my graphics on the top, on the side, and right there. So Depending on which shape you start with and extrude out depends on how your object lays on your page. So just a quick little trick there. All right, the second item we're going to work on is building a jar. So this is the jar we're using. We bought these from Amazon to use as a product. So that is the size of the jar, and we're going to recreate this in a 3D space. So first things first, let's just create this jar. And we're going to use what's called Revolve to build the jar. So let me show you how Revolve works. So I'm going to make a new box filled with white. I'm going to give it a width. We're going to use half of this, so we're just going to say 1.5. We're going to give it a height of, we'll say 3.4, because we want to account for that lid, so maybe even 3.3. We'll give it a little bit bigger lid and hit OK. So that is half of my jar. So let's talk about how Revolve would work. When I click Revolve, notice how it takes that half and it spins this around in a 3D space. So it starts from the left edge and revolves around 360 degrees, and that gives me that cylinder shape. So that would be that cylinder shape right there. Now on this one, let me undo that real quick. On this shape, I might want to actually round my bottom here. So what I can do is I can grab my direct select tool and I can round the bottom so it kind of matches the bottom of that jar. I could choose to round this a little bit as well. There we go. And also, let's go ahead and let's fill it with a color, something similar. We'll try that color. So we just selected out of that. We also want to go ahead and make the lid. So the lid, we're going to make a new shape. The width is going to be the same. I said 1.5. The height on this one, we'll do 0.2. And let's go ahead and click OK. I think I'd want him to be a little bit taller, so I might make him a little bit taller. Again, I'm going to bevel just this top edge, and we're going to start putting this together. He is going to be a black color. So let's go ahead and just choose a black color, and we'll put him down so he's right on top of our shape. So that's our half a jar. And now let's go ahead and let's revolve around that jar. And you'll notice quick, easy, we just kind of made ourselves a jar. If I want to move that lid down a little bit, I can grab just the lid, move it down. There we go. I like that. That looks good. As with the other object, you can still play with your X, Y, and Z rotations of how you want to show it. But things get a little funky because they're each doing their own. So I'm just going to leave it where it is because I just want a jar. For our jar itself, the materials, I have looked in our basic materials. There is not really a glass material. If you have a subscription to Adobe Substance, you can go and download a glass material. But I did find turning up the metallic look kind of gives it a glass appearance. You can also turn down your roughness. So we can kind of give it a metallic appearance. It helps. It is not perfect. Remember, this is all just representative anyways. We'll give that some metal as well. Let's go ahead and let's load in our two labels here. So I'm going to make a new symbol. Honey label. Again, it's just a graphic static symbol. And we're going to do our top label. Again, a graphic. Put it in. There we go. So just like before, we're going to grab, let's say, our bottle here. We're going to add our graphic, and we're going to go ahead and put on our honey label. And we're going to put it in the position we like. And there we go. You can move it around. So if I want to see more of one side or the other, in this case, I would probably want to see, yeah, maybe something like that. Same thing for the top of the jar. I can put on my top label, slide it into the correct position. There we go. If I wanted to, I could also rotate that label around. Oh, look at that. Way better. So real quick and easy, we just made our pure honey item here. Again, you can play with lighting. On this one, you might find the top left lights it a little bit better. We can try it on the top. And then again, you can always experiment with your ray tracing as well. And there you go. That is a nice, finished jar product featuring your graphics and your labels. So as you see, using 3D objects in Illustrator is not hard. It will slow down your system because there's a lot of rendering involved. You'll notice it's moving a little bit slower, but it's a real neat way to show how your graphics will look on a final product. And the customers really love when they can see how their product will actually look. So I hope this helps you. And if you need anything else, just let me know.